Is 8 hours of sleep really best for everyone? On today's episode, we'll look at some recent and not so recent research that sheds some light on the question of how much sleep we really need. I'm Jay, and this is Somnilopod. Hello, everyone. Welcome back. I am so glad that you chose to spend some of your time with me, talking and learning about some interesting stuff regarding sleep. Now, there was a recent study in the Journal of Nature that looked at a really large sample set. It looked at about 500,000 people. And the question that they were looking at was how much sleep time they really need to maintain health and wellness. The population age range that they looked at were ages 38 to 72. Now, this is important simply because as we age, the amount of sleep time that we need really varies from population to population. So, for example, when we are younger, newborns specifically, they need up to 14 to 17 hours of sleep. And then as we get to be teenagers, it can be up to 10 hours of sleep. And then typically as we age and become adults, between 7 and 9 hours is what has been historically recommended for the age group. Now, one of the things that the researchers looked at with this study, and I do have to add some caveats there were some issues with some of the patient population. They were mostly Caucasian, so there's not a lot of diversity with regard to the patient population, except for their age. And they also didn't rule out other medical illnesses for some of the older populations, which can be important determining the amount of sleep time that some people get, simply because if you have medical illnesses, they may cause your sleep to be fragmented, and you may not be getting as much sleep as you normally would. But overall, one of the things that they did find was that as we age, we do require a little bit less sleep. Well, I say require. We are getting a little bit less sleep. We still need the same amount of sleep that we normally would, but we're not quite getting that for various reasons. It's also important to point out with research like this that it's not a causal relationship that they're finding. They're just finding a correlation that is statistically significant. So they're pointing out that in the group that they're looking at, most of the people did X, Y, and Z. So some of this information that they find with regard to the amount of sleep time, which is going to be averaging around 7 hours, is not really new information. We have known for a while that too little sleep can be bad for us. Sleep deprivation, we've talked about that a number of times on other episodes, and also sleeping too much can contribute to other health conditions, things like diabetes, heart disease. So one of the things that they did find was that they confirmed some of those findings from previous studies, that sleeping too little, sleeping too much can contribute to other poor or other ill effects with regard to our sleep. They also wanted to point out that in older populations, too little sleep with regard to disruption in their sleep can actually contribute to some of the types of dementia that are typically in older populations because of the lack of deep sleep. So as deep sleep is disrupted, one of the functions of deep sleep is to help clean out some of the trash in our brain. There is a chemical called an amyloid protein that is flushed out during the process of deep sleep. And if that sleep is disrupted, that protein builds up. It can lead to little clumps or tangles in the brain, and that can affect and lead to some types of dementia. So they just wanted to point out that that was one of the things that they also found with this patient population. But as I mentioned, not really new information. We've known for a long time too little, too much sleep can be bad for us. So we have to find that Goldilocks zone for us. Now, one thing that's important to remember is that sleep is not a one-size-fits-all situation. There are some people who can get by on less sleep. They just simply don't need as much sleep as the rest of us. Some people may need a little bit more, but with research like this and with the information that's usually given out, we're talking about the majority of people. We're talking about, the statistically significant correlation, as with this type of research, for the majority of the participants in the study and the majority of the population. So where did the idea of 8 hours of sleep come from? We have seen some historical studies that have talked about differences in the way we used to sleep and how we sleep now. It's no surprise for those of us that tend to push sleep to the background because of work and life and activities that we just sort of have, as a society, considered sleep to be not as important. That all started with the introduction of the Industrial Revolution. And not to sound political or anything like this, but it was the company owners that needed to have a workforce that was going to work specifically a certain amount of time each day. So things like alarm clocks were developed. And as we began to see changes in the availability of ambient light, street lights, for example, something we take for granted now, but the amount of ambient light even 200 years ago was so much less than what we have now. So they were a little more in sync with their natural cycle as far as light and dark. But one of the things, and I found this interesting graphic, was a poster from the late 1800s that talked about 8 hours of labor, 8 hours of recreation, and 8 hours of rest. And that's very convenient that each of those add up, if you add them all together, to 24 hours. I think it's interesting that that was a clever solution for the labor force to say, yeah, spend 8 hours, spend just a third of your day actually working for us. But I digress. As I mentioned, the amount of sleep time that we get, we're beginning to get a better understanding of how much is necessary. Other studies that I've looked at with regard to longevity, how long we live, have shown that too little or too much sleep can reduce the amount of time we live. And typically, it's what's called a J curve. You start to see below 7 hours, it curves down to 7 hours, and then right about 7 hours, it starts to curve back up. So we see that 7 hours on average is about the amount of sleep time that people need to be able to maintain functionality, to be able to be alert and awake, and be able to handle cognitive tasks appropriately. So take all of this information into consideration. One of the things that I think we need to do just as a society, we need to reframe our attitude towards sleep. I mean, as I mentioned, we have been trying to burn the candle at both ends to get as much done as possible, and sleep has really taken a back seat to that. So we need to sort of reframe the importance of sleep. And of course, I always say it, make sleep a priority. And we really need to do that because once you're getting enough sleep and once you're able to consolidate the sleep that you're getting so that it is quality sleep, then you'll be able to focus on the things that you need to focus on during the day. And you'll be more productive. You'll be thinking a lot more clearly. You'll be able to get through the things you need to get through. And you'll have more time and energy to be able to devote to things like recreation, family, relaxation, all the good stuff in life that we really need. One practical thing that you can do to help your nighttime sleep, I know we all sort of think, okay, that 8-8-8 paradigm, if I'm going to bed at 10 o'clock and getting up at 6, then yeah, that's my 8 hours. Well, how many of us lay our head down at 10 o'clock, fall immediately asleep, and don't wake up until 6. I've never done it. And I imagine many of you haven't either. So one of the things we need to consider is that the amount of time in bed doesn't equal the amount of sleep time that we get. Studies find that most people who just give themselves a full 8 hours in bed to sleep are typically getting around 7.2 hours. So that's just a little more fuel for the fire there. One practical thing that you can do, and we have talked about this in numerous episodes, is to consolidate the time in bed for just sleeping. So one of the best things you can do is get out of bed. If you're not sleepy, don't be in bed. Work on your nighttime routine before you get into the bedroom. Start to relax a couple of hours before your scheduled bedtime, even if you have a scheduled bedtime. Wait until you're sleepy to go to bed. If you're one of those people that you just feel the need to read a little bit before bed, try reading in the living room. Reduce the lighting, reduce the noise level, make your environment a little more relaxing in the evening. You can also try taking a warm bath or a warm shower. That actually causes your body temperature to drop a little bit faster, simply because it's drawing the blood in your system to your skin. So that can actually help you fall asleep more quickly. So doing some of these things outside of the bed can actually help contribute to the depth and the quality of the sleep that you're getting. I hope this has been informative for you. I know it's always fun for me to talk about this stuff because I love this stuff. So this has always been my bread and butter. So I will post that graphic on some of the socials. I think it's really interesting. So check that out. Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, all of the good stuff. If you have any questions, any recommendations for future episodes, please reach out to me. You can contact me at j@somnilopod.com, and we will try to work on some viewer questions in the future, as well as some episode recommendations. So until we talk again, as I have said a time or two, please try to make sleep a priority. Thanks so much.